Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to an episode of the Monie's Podcast. I am your girl, Monie, and today we're going to be talking about people pleasing. You know that thing where you say yes, but your mouth screams, oh, hell no, in your head. We're going to dive into it. We're going to get into it because this is a big topic. A lot of us do this. We tend to please people and put ourselves last. So just want to dive into that today and see how we can unlearn how to people please. I used to think people pleasing was just being nice. Turns out it's people pleasing when your soul is on fire and you still pass them the lighter. All right, so let's get into the topic. Whether it's at work, relationships, or even with family, so many of us are performing peace at the cost of our own. Today, I want to talk about what that costs you and how I'm learning to stop. I want to share a quote with you by Lao Tzu. Care about what other people think, and you will always be their prisoner. All right, the cost of people pleasing. Let's break down what people pleasing looks like. For example, it's saying yes when you're burnt out. A lot of us do this, especially a lot of busy moms when they say yes to doing things in the household, doing things with the kids, just to please them and keep them happy. Apologizing when you didn't do anything wrong. I am a big victim of this one. I say sorry a lot of times when I don't think I was in the wrong. I didn't do nothing wrong, but just to make the person happy or not to get them upset, I'm saying I'm sorry. Some of you guys may relate to that. Avoiding conflicts at all costs. So that is people pleasing. I'm also gonna slide into that category. I do not like confrontation. And so to keep the peace, to keep everybody happy, I avoid conflict. I'm not saying nothing, everything's good. And in the end, that doesn't benefit you. You find out that you suffer. You should have used your voice. You should have spoke up. You should have stood up for yourself. So that's another one. Avoid conflicts at all costs. Basing your worth on someone else's validation. That person makes you feel special. If that person doesn't like what you're doing, you're not doing it. It's like their opinion matters to you the most. And that will be something that really affects your overall mental health because you want to please that person. People pleasing. You validate their opinion and you validate what they have to say. Personal reflection. For years, I thought my role was to keep everyone else comfortable. You know, it's like walking on eggshells. Sometimes you feel those situations. I always just wanted to keep everybody comfortable, everybody happy, no one get into arguments, no one says anything, even if it meant I was uncomfortable every day. A perfect example of this would say in the workplace setting. The work environment, sometimes your personality, you have to be bubbly, you have to be talkative, and sometimes you don't feel like doing that. Just to minimize being reported or people gossiping about you or labeling you, I found that I often had to become very uncomfortable with sparking a conversation, getting deep into, talking to your coworkers. And sometimes you just want to go to work and sit there and just work. But nowadays, it's not something that people, are okay with. They frown upon that. So that is a part of my people pleasing is I often get uncomfortable to make other people feel comfortable. Another example. One time I said yes to helping a friend move. On that same day, I had a migraine, cramps, and get this, no car. But I showed up with a heating pad, a bus pass, and regrets. People pleasing. This was my friend, and I really wanted to be there for her, and I already promised that I would help her move, so I wanted to keep my word. But I showed up. But you see how it affected me in the end. My health put on the line. Instead of me saying, hey, I'm so sorry, I can't help you, I'm not feeling well, I thugged it out and went and just was there for her. Let's talk about some of the costs of people pleasing. Emotional exhaustion. Oh my gosh, you will become drained. I keep thinking of a glass that's full. You have to be a full glass in order to pour into others. You can't be half full. It's not benefiting you. And so emotional exhaustion, you're tired. You are not putting yourself first. Your memory starts to fade. It affects your own personal life. And this took a toll on me for the worse. People pleasing, oftentimes I was not getting enough sleep. Sleep deprived. And it shows up when you're driving, you're falling asleep at the wheel. That's not good. When you're at work, you're falling asleep at the desk. You know, when you're in a conversation with a friend, you're just not attentive. So emotional exhaustion will come into play. Resentment. Oh my gosh, you will start to regret. Why did I say yes? Oh my gosh, now I'm regretting it because now I can't do this and now I can't do that and now this hurts and now that happens. So resentment, you start to feel a resentment towards the person who is the one asking you to do some of these things, pleasing them. So resentment is a big factor, and to minimize that, just focus on yourself. Again, it's okay to say no. All right. Disconnection from your own needs. What is it that you need? For example, when I said yes to helping a friend, I needed to rest, and I also needed to put personal things in order. And so you disconnect from that. Those things get placed on the back burner. You don't have the time for that anymore because you've put them in the forefront. And so you're giving them your 100%. I'm not saying you shouldn't be there for people, but you have to be able to have a balance. You have to have a balance with yourself, and you have to have a balance with being able to be in there for others that need you. Attracting people who take advantage of your kindness. This is a big one. I think people view me as somebody who's kind and sweet and often help people out, especially when I try to help people who are in tough situations. Hey, lend me $100. Hey, order me this, order me that. I often take the time to help that person, and then it attracts their friends or other people around them that say, hey, okay, so she was able to help you with that? Okay, I'm gonna ask her. No. Don't do that. So people often take your kindness for weakness. So let's talk about the costs of people pleasing. Emotional exhaustion. This is a big one. You get emotionally drained. You find yourself extra tired. You find yourself sleepy. Oh my gosh. This one is a big one for me, emotionally exhausted, because you're not in tune with what's around you. Quote I'd like to share. You can't set yourself on fire to keep others warm. This is perfect for my example of people pleasing, because you're not comfortable. Who's benefiting from this? They're benefiting off of you. And so people pleasing, you have to be able to remember to put yourself first. You are a priority. And honestly, I never did that. For a long time, I put a lot of people before me, and it affected my health. I think my wake-up call was when I realized how badly it was affecting my health. When I started to talk to my therapist, see my family doctor, and noticing certain things was changing. And when they asked, what's going on in your life? What's new? What's changed? And you start to analyze and think, I haven't been sleeping well lately because of that. I haven't been doing this because of this. You start to put things in perspective, and then you said, yeah, I'm gonna have to get it together. But it shouldn't get to that point where you get a red flag because your health is being affected. You have to realize that you need more, you deserve more, and you deserve to be treated better. The turning point, just touched on that a little bit. There was a time where I said yes and regretted it deeply. Quite a few times, actually. I'm going to use an example with shift work. Working in a fast-paced environment, there's often times where you get called to come in or pick up a hole. I've often done that, and sometimes you go in and it's just chaos, and you're like, oh my gosh, I was fine. I was home relaxing. I didn't need to be here. I honestly regretted a few of those moments because it took a toll on me, and you put yourself in a situation where you weren't in originally. And I often regretted that, although you're getting paid, but in the end, you're suffering. So many things are being put on the line. So reflect on some of those moments where you said yes and then you regretted it. How did it make you feel? Once you think of that feeling, you will then start to realize you want to change, you want to shift. A meltdown or a wake-up call that made you reflect. I often helped it out people to the point where it affected my bank account. Your money, your own personal loans and payments started to bounce. And that caused me to have a meltdown, a breakdown. And maybe you're thinking, why would you let yourself stretch so thin? Well, it's just, again, people pleasing. You wanted to please that person. You wanted to keep that person in your life. And you wanted to make them happy. I think sometimes I wanted to show the image of me being like a superwoman, and that I was always reliable. So those are the things that caused the meltdown, to the point where my bank account was low. And I looked at it like, oh my gosh, half these payments aren't even mine. Half these things that I spent money on, they're not even mine, And so that caused a meltdown and a wake-up call, because it made me realize you can't live like this. If you need that person to help you the same way you're helping them, can they? Will they be there for you the same that you were there for them? And so I had to just have a conversation with myself. A relationship that drained you because you couldn't say no. Again, I have a friend that was in a relationship with this guy, and every little thing that he needed, yes. And it's like, can't you say no? I was often being flaked on because of her relationship. She was doing things with this person that just to please them. She wanted to make this person happy, and it took a toll on our friendship because it happened too many times. And I was saying, I'm not saying you can't be in a relationship, but you have to have a balance, and that relationship drained her to the point where it even was hard for her to end it, because she was so used to saying yes, she couldn't say we're no longer gonna be together. She couldn't find the right words. And so if you're in a situation like that, again, you have to evaluate what it's affecting in your circle and how you can elevate yourself from something like that. There was a moment when I said yes to a project and I knew I couldn't handle it, but I was like, yes. Let me tell you how I cried in the bathroom, not because of the project, but because I was tired of betraying myself. You know, I found out that I wasn't appreciated. I did the project, it was good, but the feedback, some of the criticize that I got from what people had to say, it made me just feel like, why did I do this? All because I was trying to impress people and please people. But when I was in the bathroom and I cried, I honestly looked myself in the mirror and said, never again. I'm never doing something like this again. And sometimes you have to reach those points where you have a serious talk with yourself, and it involves you looking yourself straight in the eyes in the mirror and saying, never again. Never again. And I stuck to that. I really held myself accountable for that. Unlearning and healing. So how do we stop people pleasing? Because some of us are saying, yeah, it's not easy. It's hard, especially if you've been in that mode for such a long time. How do you unlearn and how do you stop people pleasing? Here are some of the tools and things that helped myself. Therapy. I cannot stress this enough. Therapy is a number one tool. I often bring a lot of situations into my therapy sessions, and I talk to my therapist about them, and she is the best. She helps me do, like, sometimes we have role play, and you can practice some of the things you need to say to that person who you're a people pleaser to. So therapy really helped me put a lot of things into perspective. So if you have a therapist or if you're in therapy, try using that to help to unlearn and to ultimately get to healing. Journaling. I have a journal and I write in it almost every day, I would say. Having a journal allows you to release, let go some of the things that you experienced throughout the day or situations that you went through. I write it down on paper and I leave it there. It's almost like I'm flushing my system. So just keep a journal by your bedside. Journal. I find I do that at the end of my day when I reflect on how did the day went, what were some of the things that didn't go well, and my people-pleasing situations as well. Practicing no without explanation. I often used to say no, I can't because I'm helping my mom with this, or no, I can't because I'm working tonight. No, I can't. You know, you have to be able to just say no. And that's it. No, full stop. Period. Done. You don't need to explain yourself to people all the time. And if these are your true friends, your true circle, people who know you, they should be able to understand. But I found I was over-explaining. No, because remember I did this for you last week and I can't again. And when you explain, it opens up a whole can of worms. You know, you went from trying to please someone to explaining that you can't. And then them wondering, well, why can't you? And then they start to make you feel guilty. Guilty because you said no. So try not to over-explain. Just give a simple answer, no, and keep it moving. Reminders like their feelings are not my responsibility. Again, you can't control how people feel about you. regardless, people are gonna judge you and think what they want if you say no or stop doing things for them. You have no control over that. I had to learn that the hard way, because I was like, oh my gosh, now they're gonna hate me. Oh my gosh, now they're gonna think I'm mean. Oh my gosh, now they're not gonna talk to me. They're not gonna wanna do this with me. And sometimes it went that way, where they minimize interactions with me, all because I started to step back from people pleasing. So you have to look at some of those things and realize that their feelings is not your responsibility. Here are some positive affirmations that you can say out loud daily for basically reminding yourself that you don't always have to please. No is a complete sentence. Say it with me. No is a complete sentence. And that goes back to me saying you don't have to have an explanation. You don't have to explain why you're saying no to certain things. Another affirmation. Repeat after me. I am not responsible for how others feel about my boundaries. This one resonates with me. We're going to say it one more time. I am not responsible for how others feel about my boundaries. So basically, what that means is you cannot hold yourself accountable for how people feel about your boundaries. Some of the boundaries that I had to set in place is I can only help you once a month instead of all the time. That's a boundary. And so if someone is constantly coming to you, remember what I said? I can only help you once a month. So you have to try to basically hold them accountable as well. Remind them my boundaries. My boundaries matter. I explained to you certain boundaries and I feel that you are crossing them. So just remember that you're not responsible for how others feel about your boundaries. Next affirmation. I am worthy even when I'm not useful to others. All right, repeat after me. I am worthy even when I'm not useful to others. And this is a big one because sometimes you just feel useless. You just feel like that person has cut you off, but you can't again tie your worth to one person. You're still you. You're still valued. You're still loved. You're still appreciated. And you're still worthy. And so you cannot tie that worth to just one person. So just remember that one. I want to encourage my listeners, those of you guys who are listening, watching in right now, unlearning people pleasing is not becoming rude. I want you to really think about that because a lot of people look at it like, I don't want to be rude. If I tell them no, it doesn't mean you're being rude. It just simply means you are putting your foot down. You have to take a stand for yourself as well. So unlearning people pleasing is not becoming rude. It's becoming real. You know, it's choosing honesty over harmony. And you need that to evolve. You need that to grow. I try to put myself on the other end where I had someone who I looked at as people pleaser. They were pleasing me. And I found that it got to a point where I was taking advantage of this person because I knew they always could tell me yes, right? And so I often went to them and I just asked them for things and just kind of piled a lot of my burden onto this person. And they were always there for me, always there for me, always there for me. And the minute when they set up their boundaries and said, Simone, no, can't do this no more. I was like, what do you mean? It was a shocker for me because I didn't think that person had that in them. Didn't think they had the strength basically to just back away and simply say no to me. But the minute they did that, it also made me look at how I was treating that person. And if I was the one that pushed them to that point to say no and wanting to change, So again, unlearning people pleasing is not becoming rude. And I looked at it as, at first, well, they're kind of rude, but it's just them becoming real. They had to be real in that moment and value and care about themselves more than they cared about me. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I had to respect that. That person and I are still good friends to this day. And it opened my eyes to be able to add my own boundaries in my own life towards people who were then taking advantage of me. So if you're listening and this has hit a nerve, I just want you to know that you are not alone. You're not behind. You're not broken, selfish for choosing yourself. You're learning to return to you. And that's sacred work. Very, very sacred. You have to be able to come back to you. You have to learn to be able to lift yourself up in those moments of people pleasing and think, how has this benefited me? What am I getting out of this? So you have to really look at those things. Again, comment, like, subscribe. Let me know your guys' thoughts about this topic. You can dive so much deeper into people pleasing, but I just wanted to apply it to my own personal journey and how it's affected me, as opposed to getting really, really deep. I may be able to touch on it again by having a guest on, because there's so many different aspects of people pleasing. I want to add a quote by Paulo Coelho. I apologize if I've totally butchered this last name. It says, when you say yes to others, make sure you're not saying no to yourself. And on my journey with people pleasing, I found I often was saying no to myself. If I had something to do, I placed it on the back burner and said, no, you don't need to do that today, and attended to the other person's need. So whether it be in relationships, workplaces, family, I was often saying no to myself. And it takes a toll on you. It shows in how your demeanor, how you interact with people. They start to look at you as being miserable, grumpy, but really you're having a tug of war with yourself because you're just thinking, oh my gosh, how do I get out of these situations? How do I say no? And how can I get that person to stop depending on me and things like that? And I don't think I would have been able to come to that point if it wasn't for my therapist and my daily affirmations and me journaling and just having a reflection and just seeing, am I also appreciated and valued in that person's life as how they are in mine? So those are some of the things you have to definitely take into account. All right. So that basically wraps up my people pleasing session for today. Slide into my DM or leave a comment below and tell me what some of your boundaries are that you're setting this week. I'd love to hear from you guys. It's that time where we get into our segment called Good Things Are Coming. Good things are coming. It's the segment of the show where we talk about, despite your challenges, despite what you're battling, despite what you are going through, just know good things are coming. So we can apply it to today's episode by saying, good things are coming because you are putting yourself first. And with that, opens a lot of doors, meaning a lot of good things are coming when you start to put yourself first. All right, so good things are coming because we're putting ourselves first. All right, so remember, value and appreciate yourself. And I want to leave a challenge with you this week. Say no to one thing that doesn't serve you. And say yes to yourself, even if it's just resting. Sleep is underrated. You need sleep. Breathing or doing absolutely nothing. Just say yes to something else and say no to one thing that does not serve you. Absolutely does not serve you. Until next time, keep choosing peace, keep choosing truth, and remember, you are valued, you are appreciated, you are loved. Thanks for tuning in to the Monie Podcast, and join me next week when we'll have a special guest. Bye for now.